Hi, this is Kermit from Works of Light. So a couple weeks ago, we had a community conversation where we were talking about the ego and how the ego can hold you back. And so we broke that conversation down to 3 main points. And then we decided that in the next conversation, we would take that first point and expound a bit further. So we missed this past week's talk because it fell on Halloween, and so we thought it best to postpone. But here, I just wanted to remind us of what we're going to talk about and focus back on the issues so that we can think about it in the interim. So by the time we come back for the conversation, we will have thought about it more and have more to input. And so it essentially boiled down to a part of the ego then has you deny wisdom. Wisdom, or at least one definition of wisdom, is being able to recognize certain themes or patterns or principles that repeat throughout life. And that helps in guiding into the future when you kind of see how things go. And so there's an ancient philosophy about this, as above, so below, meaning that in the microscopic view of things, the principles hold and continue all the way to the macroscopic views of things. I guess a quick concrete idea about that is if you look through a microscope and, millions and millions of times zero in, then the smallest particles behave in a certain way. And we have observed that the largest bodies, constellations and things, stars and star binary patterns, end up moving and working in very similar fashions to microscopic things and atoms and so forth. And so the idea is that there is a connection that runs from the greatest to the smallest, and that a part of wisdom is being able to recognize that. Now, that kind of wisdom often takes time and experience in order to get enough data, so to speak, to see the recurring. Now, if we're people, though, that think of ourselves as these isolated kind of the ego and I know better and other people haven't experienced the same thing as me and so I don't want to listen, well then we're denying wisdom because someone else can recognize that we are in a pattern or that life tends to roll out a certain way given a certain set of things. And so the specific words we use were principle and context, and that a person can understand a principle and ego can be confused because they're in a different context. But if they understand the principle, then it's a help even in the context that you are in. So for instance, if I'm talking to my daughter and about how to treat people and how being nice is a good thing and being mean is a bad thing. Well, I don't have to know the currency of the daily exchange, like what kinds of jokes they're telling about each other. It'll be different than when I was a kid. But the fact of being nice and not being mean to people and that taking you further in your life is still going to be the principle, even though the context and how that plays out ends up being different. So, and it goes both ways. We were sure to say that in the initial talk, but we're going to broaden that, meaning it's not always the case that it's just someone who's younger, say, who's not listening to someone who's older. It could be also that a person who's older is not listening to a person who's younger because for many reasons. I mean, the obvious is that a person can be old in years and young in experience, and another person can be young in years and old in experience. And then the two could work together in conversation. It doesn't always go, top down. And so that ends up being the point. That was our point of focus, and so we're going to expound upon that point a bit more in the next conversation. Hope you'll be able to make it out, and if you're not able to make it out, then I will be doing a recap after that talk here at Works of Light. Thank you very much.